Contrast these two introductions. Here I am. I'm Hudson Brock. There you are. I'm Hudson. Did you notice how differently those made you feel about me, about yourself, about the way we are going to relate in this conversation we're about to have? Tonight I'm here to simply state that our world, meaning we in this room, our city, and the rest of the people out there, desperately need more of that second posture of there you are. So growing up, I was always a soccer player, and I've been a big fan of the beautiful game. Shout out to our local team, Chattanooga FC. Thank you. And throughout my lifetime, there's always been two players at the top of the GOAT debate. And for the three people out there that don't have social media, GOAT is an acronym for greatest of all time. And while I don't know these two players personally, at least not yet, I think they help exemplify these two postures. So on this side, we've got the handsome man from Portugal, the most followed person on Instagram, Cristiano Ronaldo. Cristiano fans. And he's going to represent the here I am posture. Then on this side, we've got the little boy from Rosario, Argentina, who just won the World Cup, the Ballon d'Or, and joined Inter Miami in the United States. This is Lionel Messi, and he's representing the there you are posture. And growing up, I was so enthralled watching both of their careers. They both competed at the highest level, set records, and led their team to championships. And if I'm honest, I felt a pull to both. There are times where I wondered, what would it be like to be that good looking and to have that supreme individual confidence? And also, what would it be like to be able to just be quiet and dominate the game and lift your teammates up like Messi? And as I've grown up and I've thought more about it, I realized I was never going to be able to get paid to play soccer, but I could learn from these guys. And what I'm here to say tonight is that we have been told a lie that in order to be successful, we need to take this posture, and we need to be loud, and we need to say, here I am, consistently. And that what's lurking over here is true fulfillment, and that's in the there you are posture. So, like any good millennial thought leader, I found a way to take an age-old wisdom, like being other-centered, and put my own brand on it so I can feel cool. So for me, that comes in the form of a weird word called Allocentrism. Has anybody heard of it? No? Okay. It's the opposite of egocentric. So it means other-centered. Egocentric means self-centered. The definition, if you looked it up, is having one's interest and attention focused on others. And it was weird enough for me to remember it. And so I discovered it in 2021, and I started to think about it. And I discovered it at this really interesting point in my life, where it was the first time ever, other than maybe 2 weeks freshman year of college, where I experienced loneliness. So as the thick of quarantine, COVID, beginning of 2021, my family and I had recently moved back from Los Angeles to Chattanooga. And Chattanooga was very quiet at the time, and a lot of my personal social rhythms had been totally disrupted. And I had a lot of moments of just feeling a sense of a little bit of hollowness and a little bit of angst that I hadn't had before in that loneliness. And so I started to think, is this a me thing, or are other people experiencing this as well? And in my line of work, I do recruiting, and so we help companies make challenging hires. And I get to talk to thousands of people about how they got to where they are professionally and where they want to go. And in that, to get to know them personally, get to know really four main things. What do they love? What are they good at? What can they get paid for? And what do they believe that the world needs? And so it creates this cool, vulnerable space to get to know someone, because a career decision, a job change, I'm sure all of you have been through it, it's a pretty stressful thing. And in that, I started having these conversations and realizing that a lot of people were feeling lonely. And this wasn't just people that had lost a job. This is very successful people, like C-suite people that you'd look at and be like, they have it all. Or you have people on LinkedIn that have hundreds of thousands of connections, and they were feeling that. And so being the homeschooler, the awkward homeschooler that I was taught to ask big questions. So I started to want to zoom out and say, how did we get here as a society? And is this really a macro problem? And I was shocked to read that the U.S. Surgeon General said in 2023 that loneliness is an epidemic, that 1 out of every 2 Americans struggles with loneliness today, and it's even worse for our kids, and that the negative health effects of loneliness can be as severe as smoking 15 cigarettes a day, which was crazy to read. And so then I decided to take another step back and say, okay, well, how did we get here? And so here's a 1-minute history of work that I've come up with. If you think back, the U.S. is about 250 years old. The first century or so, we were a very agrarian society. And so a lot of our work was done locally in our home, in our land, in our neighborhood. And there wasn't the same sense of divide between the personal and the professional. Families had to function as teams. Neighbors had to trade in order to just have the basics for life: food, shelter, basic materials. Then the Industrial Revolution happened, and that was this crazy moment in time where we started to figure out how to harness power and how to manufacture things at scale. And while that has led to some incredible things that all of us benefit from, it also pulled people out of the home and put the engine of the economy in a factory. And so that created more of a need for work-life balance than integration. And that's when Henry Ford came up with the 40-hour work week. It was about 90 years ago that it became widespread, and the idea was 3/8, 8 hours of work, 8 hours of recreation, 8 hours of sleep. And in a lot of ways, that's still the rhythm that you and I have entered the workforce thinking of, even if it's totally changing and that's really antiquated. A lot of us are not doing the type of manufacturing that they were doing when that law was put into effect. And then we zoom forward, and we've had this crazy technological and digital revolution the past couple decades that all of us have lived through. And the cool ones of us have gotten iPhones in that process. And what's happened is all of a sudden we've had access to so much more information at our fingertips. And we've all experienced this. And if the Industrial Revolution took us from the home to the factory, the digital and technological revolution may have allowed space to go back into the home, but it's taken us out of the present in so many ways. We live in an attention-scarce society. And even in this moment, I know it's challenging just to give someone else your attention and focus for 18 minutes at a time. I feel this every day, and I think we're all figuring that out. I call it the cloudiness of the cloud. So there's just always a lot up here. And so as I've thought about this, I've realized that there's been this undercurrent of egocentrism that's become built into our careers through social media. A lot for me is on LinkedIn, so that's a big platform, but across all social platforms, you experience that. And in that current, well, to use a Gen Z term, egocentrism might be one that is more boomer. For Ava, my daughter, it's main character energy. We've developed this sense that we have to be the main character, that the story is about us. And there's so many talks and so much content out there that will try to convince you of that. You're the star of your documentary. How do you want to write it? You're the sole author of your fate. Only surround yourself with people that inspire that. And I think in that we've lost one of the most fulfilling parts of being human that comes from that allocentric posture. So who knows where we're going in the future? That was kind of a history of work. Looking forward, we're just starting this whole AI revolution, and that could be equally impactful. Right now, it feels like everything's kind of a stab in the dark, but a lot of people are saying that up to 40% of our current activities could be automated. Jamie Dimon, the CEO of Chase, recently said that he thinks our children will only have to work 3 to 3.5 days a week, and will probably live to 100. So work is going to keep adapting really quickly, and no one in this room can really slow it down. But what we can do is maintain that posture of human-to-human connection and trust that that will have a ripple effect across different industries and innovations. So a story that I found inspiring in thinking about this is Mr. Holland's Opus. Has anyone seen that? So if you haven't seen it, it's a great story about a traveling musician who decides to settle down and get married, and in doing so, he has to take a job. And he decides to become a high school music teacher just to pay the bills. And his strategy is, I'm going to get a paycheck, and then I'm going to work on composing this grand symphony, and that will make me rich and famous and fulfilled. And over the next several decades, life happens, which we all know about. And he has a son, and his son is deaf, and he can't relate to music the way his dad can, and that's frustrating for him. And he continues to have to work through the different challenges of life, one of which is just doing his job well, showing up and caring for his students who sometimes aren't very good at music and may not really care. And he ends up doing it for the rest of his career. And at the end of his career, the music department loses funding and his job is cut. And in a lot of ways, he felt like he hadn't lived up to his potential. But his students and community and family surprise him, and they perform his symphony. And it's this beautiful moment where all of a sudden he's like, wow, all those really seemingly insignificant moments of investing in people one-on-one and being present and meeting them where they are and trying to give them the gift that I have led to this beautiful thing that was way more fulfilling than the riches and fame that I had imagined. So that's my charge for us, and that's what I'm going to keep talking to people about in my work. And I hope we, as a city, can have that posture, of the allocentric posture of there you are, and that we can welcome people into that. And we may not all be Messi and Ronaldo. I know I won't. But if we take this to heart and we believe that this is the long game, that this could be several decades of work, I do think that we can experience what Mr. Holland experienced, and that the people in our core inner circles that we invest in, that we experience allocentrism with, might say something similar to what Mr. Holland's students said to him when they performed that final symphony. I'm going to say this specifically to a couple people back here. You achieved a success far beyond fame and riches. Look around you. There's not a person in this room you have not touched, not a life in this room that you have not touched, not a person in this room whose life you haven't made better. We are your symphony. We are the notes and melodies of your opus. We are the music of your life. Thank you.